when I got out of this band, I was really disappointed. I was disappointed about how it all went down with Helloween. I was disappointed, with the all legal shit and how we got screwed by the record company. And then I did Soul Records and how the people reacted to records that were not meant to be Helloween. I didn't try to do anything. I didn't even expect, hardcore Helloween fans to like it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Belgian Jasper. If this is your first time in the channel, hit subscribe right now.
Michael, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I very much appreciate your time. I know it's always busy and people book a lot of interviews for you, which I know can be a bit of a strain on your voice. So maybe let's go straight into it. You guys have been touring, a fantastic package with HammerFall. You're about to come to North America on a wonderful, there's more coming. Having done these shows several times now, have you found, a very serious question, have you found the perfect spots to have that glass of red wine backstage when Andy's doing his thing? Have you figured that out yet?
Yes, it's always before. It's always before the show. But I honestly, I don't want to do it as much anymore. Yeah. It's just, I don't know if you tend to, when you start with a bigger glass of wine before the show, it gets you in the mood. That's the whole reason for it. It gets you in the mood. And it's sometimes difficult when you do a whole bunch of shows to always be in the mood. The thing is, you don't really need it because as soon as the energy from the audience comes, you're in the mood. But before the show, you sometimes feel like you need to do something to loosen up. But I feel like I have overdone it a little bit, the last couple of shows. And I don't like it when I was just once in America. I overdid it that much that I actually fell off the stage.
Oh.
It was in Chicago. I never had that in my life. It was a blackout. I didn't even notice. I was looking at the drums. And then I woke up with the monitor man picking me up. It was nothing bad happened, but I don't want anything like that to happen.
Yeah. Okay.
I was strict anti-alcohol until 2010.
Right, yeah.
And then I started to, do something with Unisonic, and I felt like when I was recording or trying to record the vocals for the album, that I was too stiff. I was I wasn't relaxed enough. So I started to drink a little, and it worked. Unfortunately, the shit works. That's always the problem.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is that the ever-reducing vocal time assigned to Kai Hansen, it's not really to save his voice, it's just to reduce the time that you can go and have wine. Is that kind of what you're...
Nah, not really. I mean, it's like, the thing is, when I started to drink a bit of red wine in a way that I can feel it, I tend to continue doing the show anyway. And the crew is always having, refilling the glass of wine, and it's like when you're in that sort of mode, it's very difficult to stop because you just want to keep the thing rolling. So I'm intending to actually start without it or with very little.
There's just too many enablers around you.
We just have everybody, all the three singers want to sing. So it's like that's really why Kai does his stuff, and it makes the show very colorful too. So it's not really
for sure.
Time.
This is roughly 35 years since your first tour in the States, and that first tour, it was you and Armored Saint supporting Grim Reaper. Do I remember correctly that Grim Reaper, obviously, unfortunately, what happened with everything the last few years, but do I remember correctly that Grim Reaper was not at all pleased, that it was very clear very quickly that people came to the show for Helloween, left before Grim Reaper played, and all the merch that was sold was yours, not theirs?
Yeah, it didn't happen on every show like that, but it was really like, we were booked on this tour as the opener, and then it was supposed to be Armored Saint, and that's how it was in the beginning, and then Grim Reaper. And then the promoter said, well, but Helloween is selling the tickets. So it was like, and so we did a couple of shows, and then after a while, which was, I love the guys. They were really sweet, especially the vocalist of Gregory Pro. Very nice person. I know he died. I just figured that out last year. But it was nothing personal, but they had been sent home then, and then it was just continued with Armored Saint and Helloween, and we just switched whoever sold the most tickets. I mean, for us it was great. For Armored Saint, it must have been devastating, It's not really how you want a tour to go down, And it's very true. We played. I remember that we played the show that I remember the most because I was completely sick. It was in Canada. Yeah, I was on the way to Canada. I caught something. I was really sick, and I didn't want to get out of bed and whatever. I mean, it's like when you have a virus and it really knocks you off. It's the worst thing. Or the last thing you want to do is go on a stage and have a rock show. So we were even cutting down the set. I was like on stage. I was trying to pull it off. I was younger then, so I was still able to do it. I was very young actually. I was still a teenager, So you
19.
You can pull it off. Yeah, you can pull it off much better. But I was like during the show, I was saying we cut that song, we cut that. So the show was short anyway. But it's like the show was great. The audience was great. All our merchandise was sold, and when we were done, more than half of the venue went home, which was, I mean, for us, it was amazing, but for everyone else, I mean, of course not.
The last time I saw you play live was here in Toronto, when you were on the road with Avantasia. I think that was 5-6 years ago, something like that. Avantasia, I mean, obviously there's in the near future in South America, it's going to be cool as well. But everybody that watches this interview, I don't think anybody that is watching right now doesn't know a little bit your backstory and knows that, you left Helloween, came back and at one point was very frustrated with the way the industry worked. Talking about Avantasia real quick, should a massive thank you go to Toby for where we are today? Would you be here right now if it wasn't for Toby almost like forcefully pulling you into Avantasia?
Yeah, I think I would be here because I was already, before I jumped on the Avantasia tour, there was already Unisonic starting, and we had one show in Sweden Rock, for instance, but I don't know how things would have gone down without recording the first Avantasia album.
Exactly, yeah.
Because that was kind of, I mean, I didn't want to do it at first.
Yeah, well, you weren't even credited really on that, right?
Exactly, and he was, I like him. He's just a guy you can't resist in a way.
No, he won't take no for an answer. That's for sure.
He's just a very lovable guy. So because I liked him, I said, okay, but you call me Ernie on the album. So I did that song, and that was at the end of the 90s. I think it was 99 or something like that.
Recorded, yeah, came out in 2000.
I wasn't ready to go on tour with them. He was offering me a lot of money, but I wasn't ready. I didn't want to go on any stage or anything like that. But that was definitely a step in that direction. And then there was the offers that came from Serafino, from Frontiers Records, doing these Plasma Dome records, which I really enjoyed. It wasn't that heavy. It was more like AOR oriented.
Yeah.
I got to know Dennis Ward better. I knew him from Pink Cream 69, but I never talked to him. I never met him. So that I got involved with him. And then this whole Unisonic thing came up. I did the Avantasia thing because we had this plan for doing some touring with Unisonic. And I hadn't been on stage for over 20 years. It was 23, something like 20 years, I think, maybe a little less. I was off Helloween for 23 years, but that started 2017, so it was almost 20 years. And Costa, who was actually playing the drums in Unisonic, and he was also part of, and still is part of the management, bottom row. He called me one day. And he said, Toby desperately wants you to be part of that Avantasia tour. And I personally think you should do it because you can learn to feel comfortable again on stage. You do not have the whole weight on your shoulder that you have to pull up a whole show. You just have to sing a few tunes. And it was the perfect thing to get comfortable with this again. Not only because of having just a few spots here and there to sing, which is like paid vacation, really, but also the guys in Avantasia, the personalities, how easygoing everyone is, how well organized it was, and it was just a perfect kind of thing. I mean, he definitely is a stepstone to it, but I don't think that I would not be here without it. I think it would have found its way, because it was just the thing that needed to happen somehow, spiritually too, to get certain things off your chest. That's much more important than what most people recognize, record tours and whatever,
You talked about how you have a good relationship with some people in newer record labels, different than your experiences in the late 80s. Let's just leave it at that. Together with just also growing older, that realization that letting others in, as long as they're the right people, is something you need. I think in another interview you mentioned something like an artist that tries to be a businessman will kill his creativity, or something along those lines. Because you also, like Helloween, there's a lot of people there, but you got Charlie also involved and other people. That comfort with letting go a little bit, is that the biggest lesson you've learned in those 20 years you were away?
It has a lot to do with to be able to forgive, because it's like when I got out of this band, I was really disappointed. I was disappointed about how it all went down with Helloween. I was disappointed, with the all legal shit and how we got screwed by the record company. And then I did Soul Records and how the people reacted to records that were not meant to be Helloween. I didn't try to do anything. I was I didn't even expect, hardcore Helloween fans to like it. But the way the argument was just stupid. If you build a car, it doesn't make sense to call it a bad plane. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much what they did. They said it doesn't sound like Helloween or whatever. Don't buy it. I thought that was so art enemy-like. It was so anti-art. It pissed me off completely. It made me completely hate the metal scene. And it's like, this is not true. They're always bubbling about being true and whatever. How true is that? When you're supposed to be just as much as in the music scenes that always love to criticize. What sense does it make when the metal scene does exactly the same thing, just with a different style of music? It's not about being yourself. It's pleasing the audience. I am a lot more relaxed with this now, because I still think it's wrong, but I understand that the audience is that way. I was the same way when I was younger. When Iron Maiden brought a record out, and I was a huge Iron Maiden and Judas Priest fan as a teenager. And something was very different than what you expected. I still got it, and I still liked it. Like Peace of Mind sounded very different to Number of the Beast. Took me a little, but I loved it even more after that. But I can understand they don't hate it because they want to hurt you. They hate it because they love what you've done before, and they just have difficulties to kind of adjust to changes. Sure. I understand that better now. But in those days, I was like, and another thing that added to the thing is that I am a very spiritual person. And I when I got off, not religions or anything like that, but dealing with the non-physical world and with the spiritual meaning of life, these things are massively important for me. And I dived really deeply into a lot of the stuff that is available in Europe when it comes to spiritual things. And that made me a lot more sensitive to these things like satanic, attitude and messages and satanic music in the metal scene. And I'm still, I'm not scared of it. I know what it is and stuff, but I don't like it because it sends out a wrong message. I think it is just very negative. But I see the differences. A band like Helloween never was like that. We never had that spirit. We never, Helloween. I know, sounds a bit like that, but that was just a stupid idea as young ones trying to find a different name so to switch the A to the E. But we were never satanic, and we were never supposed to be. We were always idealists. And I'm a Christian, but that hasn't got anything to do with the religion and the church. It has to do with Christ, There are other sources. There are other ways to figure out, even spiritually. I mean, There are a lot of NDEs on YouTube where people met him and saw him and had revelations. You don't need to rely on books necessarily to figure out the truth about God and spirituality and Christ or whatever, and the Holy Spirit or whatever you want to call it. Okay, but these things I got really intensified in my life. So that was another thing that added to fuck metal, you know. And it took a long time. It took a long time for me to be able to be a bit more relaxed about it. And I still like rocking sounds. I still like electric guitars. I still like energetic music. I still enjoy, and I noticed that I still enjoy like my favorite Judas Priest records, or like Number of the Beast from Maiden, or Power Slave, or Queensryche records. So even some of the Metallica records that I grew up with, like the first three, were like the records for me. I can still get a kick out of it. So I'm a bit more balanced in. But the most important thing was running into Michael Weikath in 2016 or 15. I'm not 100%. It was a tour with Avantasia in France. I know that now. And backstage, somebody made like our backstage rooms to be next to each other, and I
by accident.
I just remember I was walking around there, and then he was there, and he stood in front of me, and he was the only thing that came from him was peace. Let's be friends again. And the vibe was really, really friendly. And he said the first and the only line he said was, "What have I done that you cannot forgive me?"
Yeah.
And when someone comes to you like that, you have no choice. You know, it's like it's sort of all the anger it wasn't there anymore. But if there was still a little bit, it vanished in that moment. Yeah. And I was just, you know what? I think I've forgiven you a long time. And that was still not the start of Pumpkin United, but it was the beginning of noticing something has changed. And it took a long time. We had meetings. I had like Zoom, like we do Zoom talks with Weikath. And then when we thought about a possible complete reunion with Kai and me, and doing it as the 7 individuals as we do it now. Before that, I needed to fly over to Tenerife to actually meet up with Andi, because I never met him before. He was just always that other singer that got my job, but I never met him. And with Helloween, and that includes the management, we don't do anything we don't feel right about. You know, just for the sake of money, we couldn't do that. It would just destroy me. And I think the others too. If we don't get along, and if we don't like each other, and it doesn't work. So I flew over and I spent like 2 weeks with him, and I clicked with him like this. It was very interesting. It was another spiritual kind of thing. And we talked about everything. Like, also his wife is also a very spiritual person. So he could understand what I was talking about as things that matter to me and what's important in my opinion. And that went down so well that it looked like it could work.
It's one of the rare examples where multiple people from different eras have come together, because I'm sure, I've asked him, and he was like, "Oh, not really," but I'm sure that when guys like Sascha, for example, like, or even Andi, were like, "Oh, there's this idea of bringing people together," usually when a band does a reunion, it means back to the classic lineup, whether it's the first lineup or the second, doesn't really matter, but the classic lineup, and everybody else gets kicked out,
right? At first I thought that was the idea. At first I thought they just wanted to make, you know, without firing Andi or anything, they just wanted to make a keeper tour or something like that.
Right.
But,
exactly.
But I realized that doesn't make sense, because you create another Helloween that is sort of in competition with the Helloween over the last 20 years. And it was pretty quickly clear to me, that doesn't make sense. I agree. You know, it was Jan was putting that to me. It doesn't work. We guys have to do it together. And it's so great now. It has so many benefits. Yeah. I get especially. I mean, I get along with everybody. I have, you know, special relationship with each individual, because everybody, like, it's normal.
Everybody's different.
Everybody is different. I have a different relationship with Kai. We meet on a specific level, like we always have. That hasn't changed. My relationship with Weikath is completely different to how it was, because Weikath is I'm different too, but he has changed completely. He used to be a troublemaker. He used to be someone, with games behind your back. He's not at all like that anymore. The only thing he cares about is smoking a cigarette, having a good time, and he sticks out of all arguments and fights, and that completely changed. He's like the most easy-going person ever. And Markus is pretty much the same. He's just matured. He can express himself a lot better than he used to. When he was young, he wasn't able to put into words.
Right.
But now he can.
He was just a punk rock kid,
Yeah, but he grew up too. He hasn't matured too, and that's pretty much it with the old guys. The rest I didn't know,
For sure.
The most important thing for me is that I get along with Andi so well, and that we even hang out privately. It's like when we rehearse, for instance, we always sit together eating something or drink somewhere outside in cars, or drink something, or have a coffee or whatever. So because we like each other's company, and that's perfect. You know, and so you function on stage too, because all that works out. And that is something that I'm really happy with. If it wouldn't have been that way, I don't think we would still do it.
Yeah,
and we even only made contracts until after the first tour. We only made contracts for this Pumpkins United tour, and let me think, it was ending in 2018 something, and the contracts were over. So if anybody wouldn't be up for it anymore, he would be free to leave. Yeah. But since everything went down so well, even me being like completely sick the whole 2 months. In 2017, I caught a virus in South America, and I didn't get rid of it. My doctor was really angry with me. He said that I could provoke an autoimmune reaction by not, giving my body the 2 weeks or whatever, or 3 weeks that it needs to recover. It was getting into my muscles of the legs. I started to limp after a while, and I had to throw in addition to the red wine, I was throwing in what is that painkiller that everybody's taking? Ibuprofen.
Oh, yeah.
I was taking those because I would not have been able to walk normally on the stage. I'm not going to do this again. This was like something, we just didn't want to stop the tour. We didn't want to, we just wanted to pull it through, but it was the hardest thing that I ever have done in my life. The 2 months in 2017. But even though it was very difficult, we pulled it off. And then 18 was a blast. In 18, we played various festivals and places, and we were kind of tuned in as a band. Everything was working out. And 18 was the best year in my opinion. I was healthy and I was working out. But since everything worked out so well, we kind of thought, okay, how about a record? Yeah. And that was supposed to happen in 19. In 19, we did the album. We didn't want to play live in 2019, but then we had this offer from the Scorpions because Dave Mustaine got sick, so they asked us if we wanted to jump on that tour. So we played with Whitesnake and Scorpion, and I'm glad we did. It was a fantastic tour, and I finally got to meet David Coverdale, who I grew up with. And he's a sweetheart. Is the funny thing about Coverdale. He comes across very different as the macho and stuff like that. Yeah. I don't want to sound weird, but I have a funny story to tell, because the way I met him was, I was actually at the toilet backstage, and there was no toilet paper. So I was in that room, and I said, "Is there any toilet paper?" And there was somebody answered and saying, "Yeah, in some toilets it is, and in others it isn't." And then I didn't do anything, and then I got out, and I know what it was him. Then I just put my fist, and he was fist bumping, and then we were walking and talking a little and stuff. And I thought it was so funny. The first couple of words that I talked to David Coverdale was about toilet paper. I thought that was really cool. And it's like the whole couple of shows that followed after that. It's like we were always waiting until they're done, and then we got on stage. And we were always like fist bumping and stuff like that. And he was just very sweet, very charming, and that made me happy because I really loved his voice. Like, especially like when I was a teenager, I was like Whitesnake, and the stuff that he sang on with Purple and stuff. His voice was always earth shaking, and it was always something that it meant something to me. So that was a great experience. So I'm glad we jumped on that tour. And little did we know You know, that would be that. The last gig we did was Rock in Rio.
On this tour and overcoming all these difficulties together with different people, and then especially with a single like Pumpkins United, which may have well been called Pumpkins Assembled, because it kind of feels like, you know, you and Andi coming together is kind of like Captain America and Iron Man. I know that you're a massive Marvel movie fan. Is the fact that Pumpkins United and that whole concept, is that slightly inspired by you, or is that just, you know, a happy coincidence?
It was actually
Helloween has become a little bit the Avengers of metal in a way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the band is a comic strip. You know, it definitely is. I mean, every individual is so different, and it's not always easy, especially for the management, to get this bunch of people together. And it's a miracle that it works, but somehow it does. It's like, I mean, there's no one alike the other ones. I mean, I could give you a characteristic of the individual, but I think you can even see that from the outside how different everyone is. But I think that sort of adds to the spirit on stage. It's always very punky, and it always had a bit of a comic element to it. The song actually came about. It was an idea that Andi had, and the song, the basic idea that Andi had was much more in the vein of something like Future World or I Want Out. It had a steady groove, and it wasn't as hard rock like as it turned out to be. That was Kai. Kai just made it his own. He just completely twisted everything around, and he did that riff and whatever, and he made his own song out of it. And I wasn't so happy in the beginning with it, because it sounded more like Walls of Jericho in a way. It became this thrash sort of attitude, but it wasn't a bad idea in the end, because it was kind of, it made sense. It was a, not totally my cup of tea, but it was something that the fans took in a very positive way, because it kind of reminded them of everything. It had a Walls of Jericho vibe. It had an Andi and a Kiske vibe. It was everything together. And it was one of those things that just naturally fell together. It was not really our intention, but that's how it is with Helloween anyway. There's no songwriter in his band who can like pre-arrange how a song is going to be. It's just not the way anyone here functions. You just write a song, and you either pick it for the album or not. And the band members are fooling around with it and add their ideas or whatever. But we're not a band that can intentionally write a specific song or something like that. I had the Markus from the record company. He was last year. He was saying, Michael, you have to write a song like Future World. I told him, it doesn't work that way, man. It just doesn't work that way. I don't write metal songs anyway. I never did. I just write songs. That's it. I just write a song, I have a melody or whatever, an acoustic guitar, and then maybe the band. When I was a teenager, I was trying to write metal songs, but even in those days, they were different, very different. And the band worked it all over, so it kind of made sense for the album, because it was usually tons of parts glued together, like young ones write music a lot, you know.
You said it earlier, you know, you kind of stayed away from the, let's call it, negative messages that metals, or
always idealistic,
not necessarily always negative, but aggressive maybe, and you guys always had idealistic or more positive mentality. You're taking that on the road, not just on this tour with HammerFall. You also have a tour coming up in South America with Kiss, Scorpions, Deep Purple, Avantasia, and Europe there as well.
Europe is on there too. I've seen a friend whom I just bought a new stereo system for way too much money. I mean, he gave me a great deal, but I spent way too much money on that. He just sent me photos from Spain, and before us was Europe. Europe was playing before us, so that's cool. Must be interesting. I didn't know that they were on the tour as well.
It's like a collection of
4 shows.
It's a crazy collection of bands, and there's also like a lot of people these days in the metal scene are like talking about like, well, the quote unquote old guard, they're not gonna be around for long anymore. You know, the Iron Maidens and Judas Priests won't be here for another 20 years. The same with Kiss, Scorpions, and Deep Purple. Let's be real.
Well, Kiss,
and a lot of people were like
supposed to end with it. You know, Kiss
Well,
said that this is
Kiss was supposed to end many times already, so we'll see.
I know. But they have reached a certain age. And with Judas Priest, you have like, you don't even have the guitar players anymore, you know, which is, this is already some sort of a different,
there's a fade out,
the last record was great. I thought it was really good, the last record.
Yeah, it's good.
I was surprised. I didn't expect something like that, you know, but I agree with you. It's even Iron Maiden, I saw a YouTube video talking just about that they don't know how long they will be able to continue, you know. And
it's almost like, you know, a lot of people have been talking about like, oh, what are the younger bands that can take over? And there's certain bands that have become very popular. You know, you got a Sabaton that are getting pretty big now. You got some other bands, but there seems to be that gap in between, with a few exceptions. And like a band like Rammstein is there that can easily headline whatever they want.
Oh, they're the biggest. You know that the biggest band in the world right now.
Yeah, for
they're
sure.
The biggest.
And it doesn't matter where they play. It doesn't matter where they play.
It's insane. They play in Hamburg twice, 55,000.
Yeah.
In Hamburg, right after Corona. And they play some places twice or three times, 60,000, stuff like that. Yeah. It's insane. It's really insane.
But you guys are, I mean, I know that Helloween is not necessarily playing every day for 60,000 people, but with this renewed energy and you guys coming together, Helloween now, where nobody would have suggested that 10 years ago, but today Helloween is also a festival headliner again, and can take over from these bands. Is that knowing that and dealing with these big bands, and you know your HammerFall is opening for you. I know it's a co-headline tour, but you know, let's call it what it is. Helloween is the main act. Does this mentality sometimes make you, and also what we talked about just before about your spiritual journey and looking at, you know, the world in a different way, do you feel, is there legacy weighing a little bit more on you? Is there like, do you feel almost like a sense of accountability in the world of metal, that's like it's up to us now and a few others to properly take over the torch from Iron Maiden, from Judas Priest, from Scorpions, from Kiss, because you're not going away anytime soon?
No, I think Jan is thinking a little bit like that, but we don't really, because we don't see us in a competition in any way. It's like I personally, because I don't think, I said that actually to the singer of Sabaton when we played with them. You know, bands play together with each other, not against each other. And they very nice guys too. You know, they understood it completely what I was talking about. That this is not a competition. It doesn't really matter. You know, the fans that come to your show, they don't just like you. They don't just come for you. They go to another show too, and then they buy those shirts too. Metal fans are not necessarily just Helloween or just Iron Maiden fans. They have a whole bunch of fans. I was the same, you know. They love you, they're your fan, but you're not the only one. There's just no need for any competition, you know. It's just bullshit. And it's also just a sign of being weak, really, if you see another band as a competition, you know. But there is a lot more weight. I find it, but not because of what you've said. It's just because of the person that I have become. When I was young, it was much easier because I was different. That was all I wanted to do. I'm a lot more introverted now these days. You know, I'm a lot more just thinking and having a very intense inside life, and being on the road is very extroverted. You just all the time, you're on the platform and people are focusing at you and have their expectations. And I find that very energy draining. You know, it's like, it's not easy. I need my off days. That has definitely changed. I find it a lot more difficult to be on tour for a long time and stuff like that. A whole bunch of stuff flows into that. Being older, you know, the body doesn't take it as well anymore when you don't get enough sleep and stuff like that. But on the other hand, it is also a lot better. It's a lot cooler because we're all grown up and we're a lot more thankful. You know, actually being a dinosaur, you know, yes, we are not the first generation. We are not the generation of Iron Maiden. We came later. You know, and I was very young when I started off. I was like, I think I was 18 when I did the first Helloween tour. Yes, we are the next generation, but looking at us now, we are also dinosaurs. You know, we have this legacy and we've been there for centuries now. But in this time, it's a benefit. It really is great. We don't have to. I just said that to a friend of mine, a lady who was visiting me like 2 days ago, and we were talking about certain situations that go down here in Europe with young artists. You know, how the industry controls them, and there's just nothing they can do, and how they get. And I said, I'm so happy that I don't have anything to do with that. Right. We have our own niche. We have our own legacy. We have created our own kind of world, like Iron Maiden did, like all the other bands that still are around. They have created their own sort of market, and that's just the best thing. It's so difficult for young bands today to actually achieve something. It's not impossible, but it is very difficult. Right. So when it comes to that, I'm really thankful that I started with that type of music, because it has a lot to do with hard rock and metal, just not dying, just continuously being there, and still attracting younger audience. I mean, it makes you feel not as old, when you play a tour and you have all these teenage faces.
Right.
There's a lot of young people in the background. You have the same generation, but they're more in the
But
back.
You can't see them; they're too far away, anyways.
You don't see them. You see the young ones. That's just amazing, and it's everywhere like that. In America, North America, South America, Europe. I don't know. I mean, with Avantasia, it definitely was the situation. Like it was like that in North America too. So it was the same thing. 2018, we were in America in 2018, and it was great. It was fantastic. The audience was just like in Europe, just like very excited, and it was different in the 80s. In the 80s, you needed to work a lot harder to convince them. They were like, you had these people. They've seen it all. Who are you? Especially when we played like these 2 months in those smaller places with Armored Saint and Grim Reaper. We convinced them by the energy that we had, and we were very naive and very fearless. It was all just passion. And when you have that passion, you just grab the audience. There's just no way around it. We played Eagle Fly Free, and they were just blown away. What's that? So. But it's the audience you needed to work for, and the last time we played that, they seemed to be very hungry for it, and like happy that we finally come to America and stuff. We were never huge in America. We will never be as big as Iron Maiden in anyway, but especially in America. America is a different market. We sound very European,
right?
But a band like Scorpions works better on the American market because they sound more American than we do,
right? But there is a growing demand now, and I've noticed this in the last 2-3 years. Bands like Sabaton, Epica, and other European, more symphonic and power metal bands are doing better here now. Beast in Black, Nightwish, Dragon Force, all of them are playing bigger venues now, and selling out than they would have done 10 years ago. So there's definitely an appetite in America, or North America, I should say, in Canada as well, for that European flair and that European positivity, because it's a little exotic here, right? We don't get it too often.
Yeah. I mean, I think the best we did in North America in terms of record sales was around 250,000. I think that was Keeper 2 or something like that, which isn't bad. It's not bad. I mean, Anthrax they had 500,000. I mean, they were bigger, but for us, it was pretty good. And we had the same impression. That's why we come back now a little bigger, a little bigger place, because it was so great last time. We were just trying. I think it was 5 shows. I remember most of the places, and it was like close to 2,000, maybe, something like that, and was always sold out. It was, as far as I remember, it was really good. So. That's why we decided we'd try it again this time with a little more places. Now we have like 13 shows, I think, or 14, something like that. Let's see how that goes, and you go from there,
I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. And, Michael, you told me that, hey, I've got some time to talk, but we've been talking for 3 times as long as we initially said that we would. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking so much time and sharing so many insights and bringing the energy.
I like.
There you go.
I really do.
There you go. As a frontman, that helps.
Yeah, I am very communicative. Can you use that word? This is my nature. I like
a good communicator.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Even though I'm introverted, I like talking to people. And interviews, especially with Helloween, it sounds cheesy to say that. I know that probably every band says that, but I really mean it. It's like the people that ask for an interview, they usually are your friend. You know, they kind of like what you do. So it's always a nice talk. They're not your enemy. They're not trying to,
right. It's not a gotcha conversation.
Or write something crappy in the end. You know, it's like, it's just it's part of, I mean, sometimes you have an interview with someone from a newspaper who doesn't give a fuck about the music. And then it's maybe a little lame, you know, the cliche questions, and you know he's not involved. And that's quickly over, but that's very rare. Usually it's people from the scene who know what they're talking about and who they're talking to. You know, they like the band, and that makes interviews fun, you know.
Awesome. Well, I definitely had a great time talking to you. Thank you so much for taking all this time. I do appreciate it. I can't wait to see all the footage from all the shows, and whether it's the tour with HammerFall or with Kiss, Scorpions, and all the big guys. It'll be amazing. Let's be honest, we're counting down the days for your solo album and a new Helloween album, because obviously after the release of the previous album, everybody just wants more. Michael, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful, we're recording this on a Friday, so I hope you get to enjoy a nice weekend. And,
I don't have weekends. It's like for me, it's like every day is pretty much like off or work, whatever you want to see it. You know, like I don't have these 5-day working schedules. So like that. Maybe the phone rings less, or the emails get less over the weekend because everybody having the weekend. You know?
There you go. So I hope you have a less busy day ahead of you, or busy days ahead of you, so you can enjoy some quiet. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and have a wonderful, wonderful continuation of all these amazing tours.
Yeah, let's hope it all goes well and that we don't kill each other down the line or something like that. I mean, at the moment, it works great, but it's like a very intense bunch. It's a very intense bunch.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it, and subscribe to the channel.